Chaloi di the long, manana Nyarial, Chaloi the long, Time change your gaja, can tell the other chicon calare in it in it, change your tongue one along, Catal the gaja, chicken or to ken. And Tame, Bokora Thok Nath. A Jira Moga would like to speak Thok Nath a lot in rare events, Latin one along like a go to big like Thok Nath. So, how did you get to learn Thok Nath and what is that inspiration?
Well, of course, it took me quite a while to learn the language, and I could speak now, but it's a little rusty. But first of all, I find the language very beautiful. Mm-hmm. I find it has a lot of air. Mm-hmm. and the tonal quality. So for my ear, it's a very light, lovely language. Mm-hmm. I had to learn it because I wanted to talk to everybody. Little people, big people, people left, west, and the east. And so I didn't want to use a translator. So I started off, it was kind of slow going, right? I'm just going there. I know Arabic, but I don't know Nuer. And people were very kind. They tried to teach me. People were very patient with me, and I was very determined. So as I explained before, I used to go around with a notebook, and any new word I heard, I would write it down, and then I'd repeat it and have people correct me or whatever. Yeah. I told you I circulated around wildly because I didn't want my crooked tongue just to be everybody recognizing. I wanted to face new people, new faces all the time. Yes. So we talked about that a little bit.
Yes, and also, learning a new language can be challenging, especially if the native don't write it. How did you navigate that challenge?
That's a very good question, Chuol, because what happened was in my notebook, I would write it down to what it sounded like to my ear, and then I would repeat it. But initially, I had no resources. Yes. There were no classes. I didn't have Bokel, Reo, Diok, One, Dich. I didn't have any of these. I didn't have a dictionary. I was really trying from scratch. Yes. But over time, I began to realize, as how the vowels sound a little different. Also, I moved from Eastern Nuer dialect to Western Nuer dialect, and so I began to develop a deeper knowledge of the language. Yes. But people were very kind and they wanted me to learn. They were proud that I was learning. They were proud. And I started a school, as I explained before, in Western Nuerland, where I taught the children how to write phonetically. Wow. So the way it sounded. And their ear was better than mine. So what they did is they helped me understand the differences between the dialect. Yes. But the thing is so funny, until very recently, no one really trained me how to read and write until now. I'm taking your class, so it's been a pleasure. Your online class, and I'm getting better because in truth, there's so many ways to write it. I don't agree that there's only one right way, whatever the current translation of the Bible is. There's been a development, an evolution of these. Yes. But the big bottom line for all languages is communication. So when I was learning it, I kept my eye on these things. Yes. I tried not to worry about what I didn't know. I tried to learn a little bit more each day, so that I would get better. And I kept an eye on that. I know more today. I tried to circulate, and I had people, invited them to help me learn. And they were doing that. But now I'm learning better how to write. Thank you, Shaw.
Tana. Now, going to one long lagora break a Thok Nath, rain and to one kirain or to one. So, Moga long. So, my next question is, how do you see the development of Thok Nath in Africa and the Western world, especially in America?
Wonderful question, Chuol. Well, I'm worried. I'm really worried. I have spent many decades now, both with great admiration and a great need to make sure that the Nuer language continues, and knowledge of the culture continues, and knowledge of the history continues. That's basically what I spent my academic career trying to do. And so the sad thing is, we know around the world that languages can be lost in a very short time. It takes thousands and thousands of years to develop a really strong language, but they can be lost 20 years. Sometimes they're lost, and there's of the 7,000 languages currently spoken as the first language, the mother tongue language in the world today, it's predicted that half, 3,500, will be gone before the end of this century, the 21st century. I don't want Nuer to be one of those languages. It's too precious. It's too important. It's too significant. So some of these languages are lost because in the past, people have been forced to stop speaking it. We all know countries where they've literally forbidden people to speak their native language. And it doesn't take or they bring them into schools where they can only learn in Arabic or English or something else. So we don't want that to happen. But it's not so hard. Right now, we have, thank goodness, we have Ethiopia. Ethiopia when the war got really hot, the second civil war, the war of independence for South Sudan, got really bad. Of course, everybody, a lot of people ran to Gambella region or over the Ethiopian side, or the refugees in Kenya too. And within Ethiopia, the government there at different points in its history took a real interest in trying to develop books and materials and courses in Nuer. So the Ethiopian dialect in some ways has really been strong, and that's been very important. Without that, we'd be in a much worse situation now than we are. But the sad thing is in South Sudan proper now, it's really, there isn't being taught as a subject in school. And in fact, it's about to be, maybe it's taught sometimes in the churches or some little schools, but we all know that if a child learns to read and write in their language first, so they're, as opposed to a new language on top of learning to read and write, if they learn in their own language, it's so much better for the child's brain and for their ability to learn new languages later on. So ideally, all children should learn the first couple of years literacy in their own language and then later introduce things. But that's not been the way it's been going in South Sudan. I'm optimistic that will turn around. There's some interest now in introducing Nuer as a language, a subject of study at least. So we'll see how that goes. So that's how we have the Ethiopians that are charging ahead. We have the South Sudanese, which are kind of behind, but they can take advantage of what the resources that the Ethiopians have made. And then we have the diaspora.
Yes.
We have the diaspora. We have people who were born in refugee camps in Kakuma and Pinudu or all of these places. We have the parents who may have been born in South Sudan but had to run. And many of those parents, some of them, especially some of the women, never had any opportunity to learn to read and write anything.
Yes.
Okay? So all people are running, they're trying to work for their life. The lucky ones manage to somehow get to some of these other countries, Australia, Canada, the US, and we have populations of refugees there. Now what happens then? Well, as you can expect, the poor parents are struggling even to feed their children. They might be working 3 or 4 jobs, husband and wife, everything, and bad jobs in the sense that they have hours at night, hours of the day. The children are doing what they can. They're trying to merge into the school in English, let's say, as the language. And so they have challenges. The parents prioritize English because they want their children to survive in this new society. And it's all very understandable. It's all very understandable. But what gets lost is this idea that we really need to work together to make sure that the generation in the diaspora at least learns how to understand and read and write their own language. Another reason languages get lost is there may be a vibrant oral culture, okay? But if the language is not written down, it's really easy to lose. Yes. But if it's written down, even if the way it's spelled change or the translations change, if it's written down, it gives posterity, future generations, something to work with. And because the language is so critical to the culture, when I was first learning about Nuer, I went and read the dictionary of Keegan from just Nuer words to English, trying to look for any deeper meanings, okay? Because so much is carried in that. So if you lose the language, you lose, I'm sorry, much of the culture.
Yes.
So for the people in diaspora, all of us really have to work together as we can to sort of inspire, empower, and connect all the people who want to preserve, promote, and develop their language in fun ways. It doesn't have to be just a chore. And I have some good news for you, youth, who happen to know English and know how to read and write it already. I can tell you, that's where I came from, right? You already know 85% of the letters, how to pronounce them, and how to read them. That's huge. Maybe you have a mother or grandmother who never had any opportunity to read and write. They have a bigger challenge. But you youth who know English, wow, you're way ahead. But you don't realize it. You don't realize it. So there are so many resources now that you can do it. But I think there's room, especially for the youth, to get creative.
Yes.
I really would like to come to a day, maybe 5 years from now, that we or I or people, everybody in the diaspora can come up and have books that are written in newer contemporary literature, stories of their lives, contemporary history. Interview your grandmother and write it in newer. These things will be the things that will propel your culture into the future. Now, none of this is to say that, you have to go back to try to preserve the way things were done in the home country. No, but all languages, all cultures evolve, they develop, and people can change their attitudes and discussions. But that's what I, as an anthropologist, find fascinating, because people are creative. All of you know right now, you're inventing new ways to speak newer, new ways of saying things, okay? Things that didn't exist in the past, you're encountering out in the diaspora. You're finding a way to say it if you speak spoken newer. So anyway, all I want to say is, I think it's exciting, but I can think of a lot of ways that the newer youth today can get creative. Why not make more songs in newer? Or even, what you could also do, even if you write them in English for a start, we can have people translate them in newer to make them there too. You can create art, deals with your experiences. You can create poems. You can create little short videos, all of them that can capture your experience. So I have tremendous faith in the younger generation. I know it's hard, but if a dumb old white lady like me can learn enough newer to write a book like Thok, Newer Dilemmas, you guys, you're way ahead.